morning, sir.
Morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your name?
Sure, how you doing? I am Dr. Thomas Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E.
Dr. Coyne, what do you do for a living?
I am a medical examiner. I am the current Chief Medical Examiner in District 2, Tallahassee.
I'd like to direct your attention to October of 2019.
Sure.
Where were you working at that time?
I was the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner here at District 21.
Would you please describe your training and educational background for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that allows you to do the work that it is that you do?
Sure. Started out first with medical school. I completed my MD at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School at Rutgers University. At that same time, I also completed a PhD in toxicology and pharmacology. I then went on for a general residency in pathology or anatomic pathology at the Hospital University of Pennsylvania. At that same time, I completed a fellowship training or subspecialty training in neuropathology. After that, I went to the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office for training in forensic pathology. So right now, I'm board certified in anatomic pathology, neuropathology, and forensic pathology.
All right. It's a lot of pathologies. Would you please describe for us what pathology is?
Sure, it's a branch of medicine, as internal medicine and sort of general medicine. Pathologists work behind the scenes. We have the same training as other physicians, but our job really is to determine or identify disease in tissues or in a deceased person. And we use our knowledge as a physician as well as other tools such as the autopsy procedure. We use our microscope to do histology to look at the tissues themselves, and other tests like microbiology testing or genetic testing. And together we put all that information together with other physicians, hopefully to either identify your disease if you were in a hospital, or in my case as a forensic pathologist, to determine cause and manner of death.
You just anticipated my next question. What exactly is forensic pathology?
Sure. Forensic pathology takes all the tools that you learn as a pathologist, and we also study how injuries occur, so mechanisms of injury, how force creates injury, whether it's a blunt force or a sharp type force. We also learn about gunshot injuries, environmental injuries like fire and chemical injury. We have training in toxicology. We learn about the process of decomposition, and we use all of that again to figure out how a person dies.
Brings me to my next question. Anatomical pathology is what?
That's just general pathology.
And when we're talking about neuropathology, what are we referring to?
That's specifically pathology of the brain.
How long would you say that you've been a doctor?
11 years now. Well, since 2009, a doctor, but training as a forensic pathologist for 11 years. They go by so fast.
How many years have you been in medical examiner?
11 years.
All right. So in that time, can you tell us approximately how many autopsies that you've gone ahead and performed?
Ooh, it's approaching 4,000 now.
Now, back in October of 2019, you indicated that you were the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner here in Lee County. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at that time, did you have an opportunity to perform an autopsy of Miss Diane Ruiz?
I did.
In general, could you please describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the purpose of conducting an autopsy?
Sure. An autopsy, ultimately, it's to determine the cause and manner of death. But an autopsy is a procedure in which I examine a deceased person initially, much like I would a person who walks into an office to see your physician. You start with examining the person externally, making note of normal body features, their body habitus, and then begin working to see if there are any unusual features like congenital defects or injuries. You catalog everything you see externally, and then you work internally, examining all the internal body cavities to, again, look for normal features as well as any signs of disease or injury. You add to that any microscopy or histology, looking at their tissues under the microscope. You sample their bodily fluids or tissues to do toxicology testing. And then you take all that data together and you hopefully arrive at a cause and manner of death.
Would you please describe for the ladies and gentlemen the difference between cause and manner of death?
Sure. Cause of death is what actually led you to die on that particular day. So, for instance, let's say if you had heart disease and you had a heart attack. Well, physicians, we call that a myocardial infarction. So our cause of death would be myocardial infarction due to coronary artery disease, and that's your cause of death. And in that case, your manner of death would be natural. Whereas, let's say if you died in a car accident and you had head trauma, and perhaps maybe your cause of death is traumatic brain injury due to a motor vehicle accident, then your manner of death would be accident. In Florida, we have 5 manners of death. There's natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and then lastly, undetermined.
All right. Now, let me draw your attention then to the autopsy of Ms. Diane Ruiz. Did you perform that on the 11th of October of 2019?
Yes.
Would you please describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you began the autopsy of Ms. Diane Ruiz?
Sure. The body was transported to our office under homicide protocol. So it was in a body bag that was sealed with a lock. So the first thing we did was unseal that lock, open the body bag, and begin examining the body in its natural state, that is wearing clothing, sort of slowly documenting the clothing the person was wearing, removing the clothing from that person, placing that aside for additional photography, and then moving in towards examining the body.
What injuries did you note, if any, on the external examination of Ms. Diana Ruiz?
Sure. Most notably, so she was in the stages of putrefactive decomposition. So her tissues were being decomposed and degrading. She had some evidence of animal or scavenging activity on her body as well. And so portions of her ears and nose were removed already, most likely by avian scavengers. But I could see externally, first and foremost, that she had fracturing of the nasal bone. She also had a laceration underneath her left breast. She also had bruising or hemorrhaging in the skin on both sides of the left and right sides of the body.
Okay. Was that the extent of the external injuries that you observed on?
The most significant external. There was, of course, a lot of significant internal injuries.
And did you document all of these
Well,
by way of
I apologize. She also had, what I didn't talk about was bruising on the back of her left forearm, bruising on the back of her left hand. I can also see that she had a fracture of the fourth finger, the proximal part of the fourth finger, and she also had some bruising on her right arm as well.
After you noted these external injuries, did you ultimately document those particular injuries
Yes.
by way of a photograph?
I did, yeah.
Now, before we get into the internal examination, did you also document the internal examination by and through photography as
Yes.
well? So, if I may approach defense counsel, Judge.
You may.
I'm showing them what's previously marked Stacy Zimmer 30, 30A, 30B, 30C, 30E, 30G, and 30H.
You may.
Judge, can we approach?
You can. Actually, it might be a good time to just take a quick break. I'll send you all back to the jury room.